Welcome to The Writer's Dream. This is a program where authors can come and talk about their books, how they wrote them, how they published them, and their attempts to market them. It's also a program where people who are interested in how stories become books and how authors actually take their life's journey and create them or turn them into books. This is what we talk about here. Today we have an incredible mother, an extraordinary mother really, who took her daughter's disability, which is sensory processing disorder, and she wrote a book to help her daughter, children like her daughter, and families. And her name is Diane Renna, and the name of the book is Megan's World. And Diane, believe it or not, shared with me that she has dyslexia, and she was able to write a book. There are many of us who don't have dyslexia who are having trouble writing, but Diane was really very motivated. So Diane, tell us a little bit about how you got started on writing this book.
Well, it was a long journey in helping my daughter overcome sensory processing disorder. So I truly wanted to, I had the calling actually to help other children. So I really wanted to write a children's book that validated their feelings and that helped explain what they're going through, how they're feeling every day, because it's so hard for them to express their own views of what they're going through. It's so complicated and confusing to the children themselves, the parents, the therapists, the teachers. So I really wanted to write a book that validated their feelings and gave parents important information about the different traditional and alternative therapies that helped my family, my daughter, and then just to give it some references in the back with links to the therapies that we did, so parents, if they're interested, they can look up on their own if they wanted to learn more about a particular therapy that they would be interested to try with it for their child. And then I also put in the back of the book is All About Me section where children can answer questions and draw pictures, so it could start the conversation up to really learn how the child is feeling. Are they sensitive to sound, or, to really get a picture of what's going on with that particular child and how they feel.
Well, you shared with me that they really didn't understand what was wrong with your daughter until she was about 5. Now, was she in school then?
She was in a preschool, and the first preschool she went to, she was about 2.5. She spoke early and whatnot, and she was social. So my sister's like, oh, why don't you try this preschool for the summer? I was pregnant with my middle son, and we had lived in East Quogue, and there was really nobody to play with. So I sent her to this one preschool where my sister was working, and she couldn't handle the situation. She had meltdowns. Literally, I found her on a blue mat, and that was the first inkling something's wrong, but what? So we didn't know. So then I enrolled her in a different preschool that was more loving, and she got used to going to that school, but eventually she got worse. So she was irritated. She couldn't handle the classroom because it was too noisy, or the lights were too bright. She was afraid if someone bumped into her. She just was so overly stressed that she couldn't even tolerate the classroom. And the book is actually based on her first preschool show and she couldn't handle the situation. So she actually was self-abusing herself. She covered up her ears. It was very upsetting. And then it was after that we decided that we needed to take the next step to try to figure out what was wrong. And I had written a little report about a sensory processing disorder that my sister had given me, and then we brought her to the person who wrote that report, Jeannie Gantz,
so
to get evaluated.
The school and your pediatrician were not able to diagnose this?
No, the pediatrician, she didn't know about it. She learned through our experience with Megan.
So basically this is a pretty rare and new
it's more
disorder.
This was 10 years ago because she's 15. So now there's a lot more information about it, but back then there wasn't. And a lot of things we had to drive like 45 minutes to get help, an hour. And a lot of the therapists taught me what to do. And I had to come home and do it.
So I'm getting the impression that there are really 2 parts to this. One of them is the book itself, and you can explain further, is about the experiences of the child and to help the child verbalize and deal with adults, telling them about feelings. And then the other part of the book is help for parents.
Yes.
Because in your journey, you discovered a great deal.
Yeah, and it was all over the place, so it wasn't in one concise place. Like, I kept it simple, so where you could learn about, be introduced without being overwhelmed, and then when you feel it's the right time. And a lot of parents, they email me, so they ask me, oh, I'm thinking about doing this listening therapy for my child, what do you think? And I kind of guide them along the way, you look at this area and you can read more about it if you feel that's, good for your child, and they have links on the website to particular in your area, and then they just investigate on their own. But I give them the little confidence, like, you could do it, yes, it's okay. And then I love when they email me back and they say, my daughter's doing so much great, thank you for recommending that. I can't believe she's so much more social, she's really thriving, and it's like, it makes what we went through
Yes.
so much more rewarding, like,
Sure.
it wasn't in vain.
Of course, it's rewarding to help other people. So let's go through the book. Let's go through what you do in the book for children. You can even, if you want to, show the book. Read from the book if you would like.
So basically, I wrote a brief explanation, and it's like it's the first of its book of its kind as well, because some people have copied the layout of the book, but I wanted to write a brief description of what SPD is. So it's a neurological disorder that affects the way a child integrates the senses they receive from the outside environment, sound, taste, smell, whatnot, and then your movement and positional senses. So it's like getting that misconnections in your brain, so therefore the child may act out having a fit, withdraw, bang their head on the floor, cover their ears, be picky eaters. There's so many different aspects of it. So just to simplify, you could, a simple summary of.
Tell us about the butterfly at the bottom. Here.
Megan actually drew the butterfly.
She comes on the roof. Okay, so there's a butterfly down here.
On the other side.
On the other side, here we go. Ta-da. Okay, I'm a little, I guess maybe I'm a little dyslexic. And your daughter?
So Megan, she drew it. So because she's a beautiful artist, so I said, draw a butterfly or something for the book. And it took her a while, so we fit it in so it accents the book here and there.
Okay, take us through you don't really have to hold it up, we could just put it here. Take us through what the book tells the children who read it.
Well, this, basically the story is, it starts out in Megan's day. So it introduces how the child has a meltdown, what little steps in the way. So it starts out with getting dressed. It's a hard time. She would take 2 hours, but I don't mention, for the children's sake, they know it takes them a long time to get dressed and whatnot. So it starts out that she really wanted to wear this beautiful dress, but she couldn't. It was scratchy and whatnot. So she was crying, so I went in and I held her and comforted her. I fixed her hair. She, was sensitive to certain brushes and whatnot. And then how we have dinner and how she's a picky eater and she not using utensils. So there's subtle clues also in the pictures that the children can relate to, because she's not sitting in the chair. She's not eating what the rest of us are eating, because she only had cold broccoli and pasta. So all these little things are setting it off, the stress and the anxiety. So then she walks into the classroom. The boys are running around. She's afraid that they're going to bump into her and hurt her. So she retreats to the back of the room and puts her head down. So then now she's afraid. It's time for the show. So it's bright and noisy, and everyone's looking at her, taking pictures. And it just leads to this meltdown of she stands up and yells, stop. She can't handle it anymore, like that was it. So then that's just the validating the children's feeling. And then it shows how, this goes into the happier side of the story where, okay, we took her to Jeannie Gantz and she had an evaluation and she went to a special preschool and she did all these therapies. So it was like the Wilberger brushing protocol and various listening therapies and going to the therapist, going to a nutritionist, all this stuff that we did, taking Epsom salt baths and enzymes, and how she, vision therapy, and then how she became better. She didn't, a lot of people mistake, they think she does these therapies every day, or she doesn't do them anymore. These are just therapies that we went through on the journey, and then...
It's almost like reprogramming her brain.
Yes.
Going through these therapies.
Yes, so it's that exactly, that's what
So it's almost like you automatically, kind of your brain reverts to those therapies when that stimulation comes up.
Yes, it's exactly.
You've learned it, and that's how you cope with it, and that's got to be...
You're like making those proper neurological pathways,
Right.
and it was, we did handle one sense at a time, and that is really a good
sure.
way to explain it, because she did the vision, she had, problems with visual integration, and we did the vision therapy, so that retrained that neurological pathway. She had problems with sitting, she would always be moving around, so we did occupational therapy for that. So it was a lot of...
You had also told me about nutrition.
Yeah, and that was a big thing. We had food allergies and all sorts of stuff, so that was a whole nother road aspect. So it's, at least the book gives parents a little bit of information, not too much in an overwhelming way, where they can research on their own and learn more.
Because probably every child is a little bit different.
Yes, everyone's different, and not every therapy is going to, give the,
I say this
different outcomes, It depends on the child, because everybody's different. That's another complicated issue of it.
Yeah.
And also there's like Megan just had sensory processing disorder. It affects other children with autism or attention deficit, dyslexia, and they kind of all overlap.
Yeah.
So,
well, we're learning so much about the brain, and I know I say this every show, but my years of teaching taught me that I think almost everybody has some little brain glitch. Yeah, we have some little thing that causes us not to be able to process certain things like everybody else does. But then what is normal?
Yeah, and I believe that's what makes everyone different. And they do have gifts. Like Megan's a beautiful artist. She's gifted in music. She's gifted with the flute. So it's amazing how she had severe sound sensitivity, and now she's okay. She actually sleeps through the alarm every morning, wakes up everyone else but her. Yeah. But
so
she has this gift from it offers hope and inspiration, and just to focus on those gifts, so that we always painted, and she is just, you have to focus on the positive, not always the negative.
Well, I think...
And interact with them with their interests.
I think that's your story. Your story is that you were presented with a problem. Your child was unhappy. You researched, and you did. You focused on the positive, which was... And I like the way it's presented in the book at the end. These are the things I did. And then you also have a section in the book where the children are able to write their feelings. And this, I'm sure, helps the parents to isolate which modalities they need.
Yeah.
Tell us about the artwork. This is just such beautiful artwork.
My friend, so part of the writing process is I wrote this story, and then I'm like, okay, I need an illustrator. And my good friend Regina is an artist, a beautiful artist, so she's not really a children's book illustrator either. So I went to her and I said, would you be interested to illustrate the pictures for Megan's World? So she said yes. So often, like this one, the vision therapy, I actually took a picture of Megan, and she went with that, and we kind of took a picture of that, different aspects of it, like the machine, kind of like what it looked like. And then my husband took a picture of me and Megan at the table, because that's what we did. And then she just painted that. I love this one. She just painted that on her own, But at first, it was hard for Regina to get the concept of the feeling of a child with sensory problems, because she knows Megan and she was better, but she didn't want to paint her in pain. I'm like, it's not a happy book. She drew her, actually the first picture she drew was this one in this beautiful dress. I'm like, no, she would have never worn that dress. We can't use that one. It's too scratchy. I'm like, it's not a happy story. It's a happy ending, but the beginning of it, But,
well, that's what I love about this, that it does have a happy ending. Is this on your website?
Yes. Yes.
It should be. And I noticed that you also You also were a finalist in a contest because the book won an award.
Yeah, so
Or almost
in the
won an award.
beginning, I entered into Indie Excellence Awards. It's for self-publishers. Which I find it. I'm proud of it. Like there's like
be.
5 finalists, and I was one of them. And it's really an industry
Independent book
content.
publishers?
Yeah, independent book publishers.
Yeah.
Like it's
I belong to them. It's a great
yeah.
organization.
So it's not like there's so many contests out there just for marketing purposes, and some try to take all your money or whatever. It's just really, I'm proud of it because it's from the industry of self-publishers,
Right,
and
right.
you're graded by your peers.
So you self-publish.
Yes.
Yeah, and I think it's important for, so many of us now are self-publishing, to know that independent book publishers is a good organization because there's a lot of help. And as you well know, finding your way through the maze of not so much publishing, but marketing is really
and they represent,
difficult.
like you could, they've represented for libraries and book shows and trade shows. They'll
Yes.
display your book.
Enable you to get out there.
Yeah.
And I see that you also shared that another mother in Canada wrote about the same disorder.
Yeah.
And you wrote a review on the back. Would you like to read it?
Sure. My friend China, I met this woman. She emailed me online a few years ago and wanted to interview me for her blog, and we became friends. And then she wrote her memoirs about her daughter. So it's kind of like another marketing strategy. She was published by a publisher, liked my quote. So I put, China's words touched my heart. Her memoir validated the overwhelming feelings I went through myself with my own daughter's struggles with her SPD. Raising, loving a child with severe sensory processing disorder is draining for both your mind and your physical body. However, with a strong faith in God and instincts only a mother could have, there is hope. Not just spirit, it will fill your soul with spirit and give you the strength needed to endure your own child's challenging behaviors, leading you on an enlightening journey of acceptance, strength, hope, and healing. And then it says by Diane Renna,
Okay.
But, yeah.
Now, how long did it take you to write this book? When did you start? I know
I
your daughter was
started
diagnosed at 5.
Yeah, I started writing it in 2005, so I had the words, and I had an idea in my head of what I wanted to look like, on what page. So then I asked Regina if she could illustrate the pictures, so I knew what pictures, had an idea of what pictures went with the words. And then each step kind of revealed itself. So then I went online and I looked for a publishing company to help me market and publish it and print it and do interior design and whatnot. So I
Right.
found the Jenkins Group, and I made a contract with them. And so they proofread it, edited, but I literally sent in a mock book. I think I have it over here, of like literally pasted exactly
Yeah.
what I wanted it to look like.
ahead.
So I'll just show,
Yeah, this is interesting because
like here,
My
I'll
own
use
book is-
the vision therapy
Right.
one.
but my own book is all text.
Yeah.
So I didn't have to worry about this kind of thing, and I find this fascinating.
So like with the vision therapy, so she illustrated this picture, and then I went to Pine Barrens Printing, which is in West Hampton,
Right.
and they worked with me. They were very nice. They said, we'll scan the pictures onto a disc when they have time. So they didn't charge me a lot of money. They said, whenever we have time, we'll scan some pictures. And I, had emailed the words, and then I sent the disc with the pictures. And then I made my mock book, and I cut it out and pasted what I wanted to go where, and then literally I colored on another piece with a crayon that I wanted it to look soft and have the whole, feeling of this kind of background. And
I think people.
then they made it into, they sent me examples.
Right.
And then it was like choosing picture, even for the cover design, how to make the words and the type and the font and
I think
colors.
I think people don't understand how much work goes into every page of a book.
Yeah.
I mean, even when it's all text, it's you have to be so careful that there are no mistakes, and then you think it's going to look a particular way. Then when it's printed, it doesn't look like that at all. So it's back and forth. It's really a lot of work.
Yeah.
But what I was getting at was How old was your daughter when you wrote the book? Was she through this crisis?
Yes.
So she
So
was already
she
well on the way to being pretty
Was
well
she-
integrated into school and her
Yeah,
social
she
life.
pretty much, by the time she was the end of first grade, she lost diagnosis of, and technically you're not supposed to, they say, lose diagnosis of it, but it was not affecting her life every daily
minute.
life like it used to be. We couldn't go to the store, we couldn't go out to eat, we couldn't do a lot of things, could go to parties. It affected our life a lot. It was a
Oh,
lot of
sure.
strain and on my other son, and it was hard. So we actually, that's why I decided to write the book. And then I just started writing the words. It was Christmas time, and I think they thought it was crazy because I said to 3 people, "Oh, I'm going to write a book." And I think they thought, "Oh, I'm just,
Yes.
okay.
Yes, those of
Diane's
us who are
gonna
not
write a book."
professional writers get that reaction often. Oh, sure, you're going to write a book.
Because I was because it's funny too, because I used to be a
Sure, dear.
yeah, I was a secretary in the city, and a lot of my job, I worked for Joseph E. Seagram's and Sons in the marketing and corporate packaging. So a lot of the jobs I had kind of gave me the foundation of knowing about PMS colors and chromolins and how a production, you wouldn't normally learn that. So I was lucky that I did have some knowledge just from my work experience.
Sure.
And so it's probably easier for me than others, but
I think the key is that you have to look at it not as a task but a challenge. And if you're a person who's into challenge, then you can get through it because it's a tremendous process. Now, you have
and
this
deal with it one step at a time.
one step
Don't
at a
look
time.
for the end, just the step you're in.
Yeah, well, that's true.
Yeah.
I have learned that through my own processes, that it is one step at a time and not to get too distracted by everything that's going on around you. I think that's the hardest thing, is trying to integrate. Most authors will tell you, shutting out the distractions. And what was the hardest part of writing the book for you? Not the process so much, but emotionally, did you hit a point in the book where I don't want to go on with this, I don't think this is the right thing?
Like even when the people are editing the book, and it's written so a child with special needs can understand it. So maybe they wanted me to change some things around, but I stood firm with, this is how I want to write it, because I want to keep it simple and the points to how they're feeling, and then explain how they're feeling. So using a lot of adjectives to describe what's going on and how they're affected. So, talking about the feelings, the noise, having to write that in a story so people understand, and then match it up with the illustration.
And you had to explain to the editors that you weren't writing for them, you were writing for the kids.
Yes. It's more for the kids to help them. I'm not looking to win,
Yes, the Nobel Prize in Literature.
in writing.
Not yet. Right. And are you also involved in organizations that deal with children who have the various kinds of processing disorders or autism or any of the related?
I often advocate, not as much, but with autism groups, I've gone up to Albany and help educate and, lobby for the right things for children and stuff like that, and write letters. And I teach a Creative Expressions Kids Club at Gymnastics in Center Merches. And actually Megan helps me with that, to help children receive, sometimes if you're borderline with things, you don't receive services in school.
Right,
so it's just like my son is not receiving services he should be receiving in school, so I created a class. So we do a little obstacle course and whatnot, some gross motor and fine motor stuff, and then we usually go into the next room, because it's a preschool as well, and we do crafts. So and help with their senses, so then we might play with beans or sand or glue, and we're always creating, and they're socializing together, they're children, so they feel comfortable with who they are. So then they interact with one another, and I keep it to small groups, so that's been working out very well.
I think your personal experience with your daughter has got to have enabled you to see the signs and to know when they're making a breakthrough, which I think is probably really important.
Yeah, and just for them to feel accepted and loved, and not being judged. So they like to come and they have fun because they're being silly or doing what they like and being who they are. And then that's how you interact more with them, because you get a key look into what they like and you go with that, and then you match up the kids.
And sometimes that doesn't really happen in school because it can't.
Yeah.
You know, certain standards have to be met in school, and I think that's probably, I don't know if you would agree with this, but that's probably when the major portion of the problems start, is when the kids go to school.
Yeah.
Because that's when, excuse me, that's when these disorders really show up, because they're not able to do things the same way as other children.
Yeah, like they need, my son needs multisensory learning, and the worst thing you could do is take the playground away from a child with SPD or autism or attention. They need to run on the playground. It helps organize your brain so you better can learn, but they don't see it that way. You're like sitting there, you have to sit on the end, you know, the sidelines, because you couldn't sit still in class, instead of let's do a little exercising, walk down to the principal to give them a note, you know, and things like that. But I think everyone's coming around, you know.
Oh, I think so.
It's more so now than,
right.
you know.
And you have this little book, In the Light of God's Love. Was this little tiny book? Can you we just have about a minute left. Can you tell us what this is?
That, I was inspired to write that too. My friend told me about this. It's a group of authors that want to bring positive into the world, so that we did that as a group. There's a bunch of people, like leading up to 1,000 people, to make positive influences in the world. So
well, I think
that's how I created that, because it was a spiritual journey with me, with my daughter. So that just is more about me, how I found my true purpose in life, which is helping these children.
Well, you've certainly made a positive difference in the world, Diane.
Oh, thank you.
I'm sure there are really a lot of parents who are so grateful to you for what you've done.
Oh, thank you.
I hope that many more will be exposed to the book through this show. And when are you writing the next one?
I don't know.
Thank you for being on the show.
Oh, thank you, Linda.